Howdy folks, Sheriff Mad Dog McGee back again for part 2 of the virtual Atlas Theater tour. Thought we'd give you a quick shot of the lobby as she looks now, because when we reopen next year she's going to look a lot different. Well, you are now entering the theater part of the historic Atlas Theater. The theater was built in 1907, opened in 1908, and was built for the sole purpose of bringing vaudeville acts to Cheyenne. And please pardon the mess, as this is the aftermath of the fun we had on Sunday's old-fashioned melodrama. And the reason they wanted to bring vaudeville to town was because the vaudeville trains went coast to coast on the tracks just south of the building. And back in the day, the city founders wanted Cheyenne to be a cultural mecca. Proof of that, there were 5 other theaters in town when the Atlas was built. And they had their way until the cattlemen showed up and said, no, Northern Colorado can be culture. We're going to be real men, cowboys up here. But the Atlas was a vaudeville house for about 20 years until the building became the Strand Motel in the early 30s. And this then morphed into a motion picture theater with a seating capacity of over 440 people. Eventually, over time, the building morphed. At one point, this was a tobacconary, a tea shop, a dance hall, as you can see by the various platforms we have present. And in the early 1960s, it was the Pink Pony Saloon with the entire room painted Pepto-Bismol pink. And then in the early 1970s, the Cheyenne Little Theater Players bought the building for the sole purpose of bringing our annual melodrama to an indoor venue, which has been its permanent home since, and also serve as an occasional theater for the dinner theaters. And in front of us, you can see our historic asbestos fire curtain. It is made out of asbestos, but it is sealed and it's safe. As one of our melodrama MCs likes to say, over the years, the actors have sucked the poisons out, so it's perfectly safe. That's the kind of corny stuff we have here at the melodrama, yes. But the reason we have an asbestos fire curtain is back in 1904, Congress passed a bunch of laws regarding live theaters, because back in the day, most had to light their stages with open flame lamps, arc lamps, kerosene lamps, all with flames. And for some reason, flames and cloth does not mix very well, so in the event of a fire, you had to have a fire curtain that you could drop down to get your paying customers out to safety. As far as the cast and crew, well, nice knowing you. But in 1908, when the Atlas opened up, we already had electricity. In fact, Cheyenne had electricity before 1900, part of that cultural mecca thing. So even though we did not have gas lights or any open flame lamps because of the federal laws, we had to have a fire curtain. This is the original fire curtain from 1907. It has never left the building from whence it was put in. We had it recently restored a few years ago to bring it back to its former glory. And in just a minute, we'll show you why it has lasted for as long as it has. But first, we have what is called the ghost light or ghost lamp. This is an international theatrical tradition. And how it works is when we are not performing, as we are at this moment now, we have a light on stage to appease the spirits of the theater, i.e. the ghosts. How the tradition works is about 10 minutes before we open a house to bring our guests in for every show, we turn it off, roll it off the stage, and within about 10 minutes of the last guest leaving at the end of that show, we turn it on, bring it back on stage, so that there is a light on the stage literally 24/7. As we speak, in our sister facility, the Mary Godfrey Playhouse, there's an identical lamp on that stage. So now we'll show you why the curtain has lasted as long as it has. So as you can see, this part of the building is over 3 stories tall, which means the curtain goes straight up and straight down. So there's no rolling or folding or anything on the material, which is why she's lasted for over 100 years. And here we have the rope and pulley system with the counterweights. And here we have the working set of this year's melodrama, The Chicken Plot Pie. As with all sets with the Little Theater Players, designed by volunteers and built by volunteers. In fact, most if not all our sets, volunteers that build them include the cast and crew of that particular performance. And, as tradition as the theater is, when the show finally wraps, we do what's called striking the set, where everything is torn down by the same volunteers. So by the end of that night, the stage has been completely wiped clean, poof, gone, like nothing ever happened. And here we have the view that the audience never gets, but the actors love. This is the view where we get to see all your smiling faces at every performance. The more you get into the shows, the more we love it. That's why we do this, out of the love of theater. And speaking of the view the audience never gets, welcome to backstage, where all the magic happens. If you were to go to any set on Hollywood, this is what you would see. And speaking of where the magic happens, this is how we get down to our green room, way down in the basement. The hidden history here in the Atlas Theater, the gentleman in the red shirt is Tom Mix, a real-life cowboy who turned actor and starred in over 290 films in the early 1900s. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this virtual tour of the grand old lady we call the Atlas, and we look forward to seeing you next year at the 70th Annual Old-Fashioned Melodrama.